This is an upgrade aftermarket kit. It also uses some OEM parts. For a 346 upgrade, it also works on Jonsereds and husqvarnas. First thing to do is pop the rubber isolators off this carburetor and remove the throttle link. There's a little wire there that kind of locks that throttle link in place. Once you get those done, you can lift the carburetor up and start unscrewing the two screws that hold the carburetor in. And after you get this done, you can set the carburetor off to the side. Now let's take the muffler off. Two screws hold that down. Pull it off and set all your parts in a box. That way you won't get them cluttered up with the clutter that's on my desk workbench. Remove the cylinder. There's 4 screws that hold it down. And there's the piston, scored on the exhaust side. Remove the circlips from the piston and use a piston pin pusher, or you can heat the piston up and try pushing it out. That's the circlips being removed. It kind of got out of sequence. It really got out of sequence. Okay, there you go. Push that pin out, or like I said, you can heat it up and you might be able to get it out that way too if you heat the piston up. Pour some gas and oil mix into the crankcase. Pull it a few times and do this until it rinses clear. Now you're going to pull the flange off and the partition wall intake. These are part of the kit. There's new pieces that take these places, but you got to remove the bellows that are inside of that partition wall. That partition wall was a plastic clip on there. The new ones have a metal clip. Seals better. Save that piece. Now insert some circlips into the one side of the piston that's away from where you're going to be pushing stuff in. They're kind of hard to push in, those circlips, but if you use a big screwdriver and work around the edge towards the part that's not in, they kind of go in kind of easy. But it takes a couple of tries to do it. And sometimes you got to turn the saw around in different directions to get it to do what you want it to do. I've already got the piston pin and the bearing in there. Now we're going to reassemble the partition wall intake and the bellows into the new partition wall. Make sure you get it going in the right direction. There's a little line there. This is the kit. You can buy this kit from Simonian Saw Service. Just give me an email. It's sim559@gmail.com. It's $130, includes shipping. Okay, back to the video. Put a little bit of oil on that partition wall intake. It'll help it slide onto the cylinder flange better. Also, locate that clamping area about the 10 o'clock position. If you get it too low or too high, it's going to interfere with the cylinder or the base. But the 10 o'clock's just about right. Push it on good. Make sure it's tight and sealed up there against the cylinder. And then use some needle nose clampers and clamp the little metal clamp together. And there it goes. Clean off the piston. It kind of gets a little grimy. I'm going to install the piston ring. Piston ring goes in one direction only. It's got little bevel cuts on it. There's a little pin in the ring groove. Line it up so those ends of the ring meet the piston pin. And make sure that the just make sure it fits properly. Put some oil on some crank bearings and things like that in there. Put the flange on, and you got to pull the bellows through the flange. Get it so it's all straight and that the two cutouts line up with the screw holes. Sometimes you got to pry it with a pair of pliers or screwdriver. Hook up your pulse line. And then stick the carburetor on there. We're going to assemble this cylinder piston carburetor mount all together. And I do that because there's a flange on the crankcase that partition wall has to fit behind. If you get it in front, it's not going to work right. So if you put it all together like this, you can see how it fits, and you got to be behind that flange on the engine case, and that locks everything into position. And put a gasket on there, and if you strip out that partition, if you strip out the flange putting that carburetor on there, you can always put two 8mm nuts on the back side of it, clamp it down hard that way. But the new screws I supply pretty much are different than the original ones, and they clamp pretty hard. But I do put in two 8mm nuts just in case you need them. Put some oil on all the parts and squeeze the ring together. Make sure that piston had the arrow facing to the exhaust. And then tighten down the cylinder. And once you get the cylinder tight, you can start hooking up your throttle links again. Kind of goes over the carburetor brace and underneath the fuel inlet nipple, and sometimes you got to pull the throttle lever back and forth a couple of times to get that to fit in there. And once you do, put the little spring back over it and lock it underneath that silver tab. Hook the wires back up to the carburetor and the choke. Assemble the muffler back together. Get the two screws through there. Line them up with the holes on the cylinder. Make sure that gasket doesn't slip off or you're going to have a problem. And then tighten them up. All pretty easy to do. Might take you a little longer than this video to do it, but if you take your time and think through each step, remember to put that compression valve back on, and put the isolator back on and the handlebars back on. Put some gas and oil mix in it. A little thin run. You also cut. Remember, it's Simonian Saw Service. I'm on the web. Thanks.